Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. Right, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm really excited. We have an amazing show for you guys. I got Paranoid American and Joe Rupe on the show today. Welcome to the Blue Collar Mystics. I'm your host, Owen Hunt, at Bootsy Greenwood. Be sure to check the links in the description. Check these guys out. Paranoid American, comic book publisher out of Orlando. Does a lot of really cool stuff. I've done a ton of research on this kind of stuff, the Illuminati, secret societies. And Joe Rupe, of course, of Fringe FM. This is like the kind of place that I like to hang out on a Friday night and listen to outrageous ideas, stories, philosophy, haunted stories, all kinds of aliens, you name it. What a cool and fascinating world that you live in and share and are a part of. It's super cool to have you both here. We're going to get into the Illuminati. We're going to get into maybe some of the spells in the Illuminati and maybe probably discover some cool new connections that we hadn't seen before. The first part of this series was with Thomas, a Paranoid American, who's here. And we went through and we just kind of went through and we talked about the entire history of the Bavarian Illuminati, which is the beginning of this story. I don't want to ruin it because it's got a great ending. You should definitely check out part one if you haven't seen it. And it ends with basically the ending, the breaking up of the Bavarian Illuminati. And we're going to kind of start there from the pieces that remain and put those kind of back together and start working our way into some of this mystical stuff. But first, I want to welcome you guys to the show. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to see you again, man. As always, if you haven't already, guys, you got to check out Thomas's work. They just put out a brand new comic with Juan Ayala of the One-on-One podcast, or they're putting it out. And I'll make sure that the link for the GoFundMe is in the description of this. You guys, you want to talk a little bit about that, actually? Do you mind?
Yeah, it's a Kickstarter, and it's running for another 7 days. But even if you're listening to this a month later, I believe that you can still find that page, and we'll have it redirect to wherever you can get the comic at. But it's essentially a serial comic that's about conspiracy podcasters that get together and they discover some kind of superpowers that come from outer space. And this allows them to go and travel and kind of investigate things firsthand that, normally everyone just kind of talks about. Well, now we can actually go and do it, in first person. And there's lots of dick jokes and fart jokes and, all kinds of classy So yeah, there it is right here. And it features Juan Ayala from the One-on-One podcast. It's got Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. It's got Chris Prosser from the Mensa podcast. And then in the following issues, like in the very next issue, I believe we've got Sam Tripoli, XG, and Johnny from the Sam Tripoli's various shows. We've got Alex Stein makes a cameo appearance in there. And the third one, like I don't want to just keep dropping names, so I'll stop it there. But if you like the conspiracy podcast circuit, then you owe it to yourself to just check this out. Even if you don't even read comic books, this might be the thing that reinvigorates your love for something that maybe you had when you were a little kid and haven't considered it since then. Well, hopefully this could be that thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Check it out, everybody. Be sure to do that. And I'll be posting that. I'll have a link in there. You guys are doing really good with it. We want to make sure that it's more than funded, abundance, and all that good.
And I think the two of you guys might actually be sharing a cameo in one of the very final episodes as it comes to like a huge climax. So you guys will be there.
That was a high kick. It wasn't very high. Is that my superpower? He's got a not very high kick, but dude, that'd be badass. Me and Joe Rupe roll into the scene, and just like, I don't know.
Always wanted to be in a comic book, man.
Yeah, dude, that's good.
Always.
Joe, talk a little bit about Fringe FM, what you got going on over there, buddy.
Well, yeah, I do. The website is fringe.fm. That's real simple, right? So it's just a radio network of free speech that we created about 2016, and it's been growing ever since. And so we're just trying to keep things rolling there and keep things growing. And we know we have an app. We've got a radio app. We do events sometimes. We do fundraisers. But the main thing is to have, bring the old school radio feel back, right? And then like be as creative as possible, but be as free as possible. And in fact, I like to make sure that all of my hosts don't agree with each other and, things like that. And it's just really fun and creative. And then I do a show on there 5 nights a week called Lighting the Void, but also produce for people on there too. So you can go to lightingthevoid.com. That's my website for my show. Or you can, if you want to do a show or become a partner or whatever, man, like you can come over and do the fringe.fm giddy up. We're having a good time with it, man.
That's awesome.
Talking about doing an event here in Florida, trying to get stuff going, and so
it's exciting, man. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys both do amazing work. I'm super stoked to have you guys both on the podcast and to be acquainted with you. I'm really excited about that comic book, man. I'm going to make sure to,
yeah.
And you guys, you guys really got a lot of good attention and really good publicity and all that right out the gate. So congratulations. That's fantastic. Couldn't be happier about that.
I'm happy it's something that I started 10 years into this and it wasn't like my very first project because, oh man, what a disaster that could have been.
Man, that's so funny.
Does it seem like it takes like 10 years to birth things sometimes? Like, I don't know if that's like a...
You know what? I mean, that's actually a perfect analogy because, I mean, I don't have kids, but I imagine that you're going to be constantly afraid that they're just going to die or crumble or like shatter into a million pieces for ever so long. And I bet you it's like right around, at least for me, like right around, I don't know, years like 8 through 10, like I've turned into like a latchkey kid where all of a sudden I was allowed to just like be alone by myself or like walk to the store and like, do stuff. So maybe after like 10 years, you're not as worried about destroying your babies or like, making some horrible mistake.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think for me, man, like I've done these processes so many times over and over to where it's like almost redundant. Like I could just do it again and again and again.
Right. And
so you work through that over time and sort of build a process. It's like, I think it's a Joe Dispenza story where like this dude's mentor comes into the lunch and he sits down and he's like, I just lost everything I have. Pass the ketchup. He's like not even shook about it because he's like, I am money. I am the process.
Exactly, man.
That I can create this thing with. And I think, and if you go to, I think it's George Thomas, somebody wrote a book called Master, and he says it's, X amount of hours, however many hours 10 years is. I think it's like 20,000 or 40,000 hours. I'm not going to try to do the math on that, but that's about what it takes to attain mastery of something. So that 10-year number, it seems to be a pretty agreed upon sort of number when it comes to, mastering things, learning new skills, becoming creative, being able to create a business. It's like, but once you have that process built, I think you can do it over and over again. And once that kid's, got all its little abilities
Kinks
to take care of
out.
itself. Then it's, it's pretty self-sustaining at that point. So I think
it's almost like moving to like a small town or something. And it's just the amount of time it takes you to like know all the little shortcuts and back alleys. And, if you need this thing, you go to that place. And like, once you got the lay of the land, now when you actually have a project you got to do, you're not also trying to figure out and like write a map out and, check for directions every 3 seconds. So like, once like you guys are saying, once you got it like as the back of your hand, then you can actually just focus on the creative part and all the technical stuff just kind of like, you bob and weave through it a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today because there's like some other things I've been thinking about doing, and I was like, well, maybe I'd start a different podcast. Well, it's like I've done that 3 times already before. If I did like a short, like 5-minute episode, type of podcast on a certain thing, it would be super duper easy to just add to my task list. It's like, okay, well, here's just another thing that is just a tiny little thing.
Dude, I think you should go back to the whiteboard, t-shirt, backwards hat, whiteboard, and a marker. That was like my favorite videos you did, bro.
I'll do some more of those. I'm trying to shoot some stuff in nature too, because I've been up in the mountains a lot. So I'm trying to shoot some stuff up there in the mountains where it's really pretty, some like actual cool scenery, behind.
That's where the mysteries are in nature. So it's the best place to be.
You don't have to do this, but I just would love to see like a Bootsy doing like a Jack Handy out in nature, but just making like the dumbest observations of like, with like, maybe you bring like a little wooden xylophone or like one of those, what do they call, like the haptic drum things, like the space drums, you know what I mean? And just make some really crazy observations out in nature in 4K. It would be the greatest shorts ever,
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, I'll definitely think about doing that. There's some great places.
Do like a 30-minute monologue about tree sap or something.
Yeah, this is a tree. You can tell because of the way it stands there. What was that video? That one guy used to walk around and just make absurd observations. Oh my God. Well, cool. Well, let's kick it off here and kind of get back to the beginning of where we left off. We talked last time in great detail about the conception of and the implementation of the secret society called the Bavarian Illuminati, where these guys basically dug themselves into a spot that was a little over their head, but they started figuring it out a little bit at a time, and ultimately that particular edition, let's say, was found out and bit the dust. And we don't want to go too far into that because you should definitely check out the first episode. It's so chock full of great stuff. And Thomas, you did an awesome job just explaining all the whole backstory, what the Illuminati is, where it all came from, and all that kind of stuff, and how the Illuminati started to sort of infiltrate into these other secret societies because they were keeping this cloak of secrecy. So maybe we could start a little bit there, and then we'll kind of start to go into maybe a little bit more of the occult, esoteric stuff, maybe even some of what the things in symbolism might mean.
Yeah, man. I don't want to give away the ending, so I'm going to dance around that. But essentially,
so good.
The Bavarian Illuminati, they remain extremely secret. And there's a couple other things too that I'm not even sure if I got into on this, but it's a huge element that we're going to say, like, if this is one of those little nuggets that we still see in modern day. And I don't know if the Bavarian Illuminati invented this, but they absolutely perfected it. And they put it on a certain level where the guy in charge, we're just going to say it's Adam Weishaupt, but it was a slightly larger group. It was him and Von Nige. But they also had this thing where when you joined, you would have to kind of like write down all the horrible things that you've ever done and all the things that you're embarrassed about, and your whole
like
entire
Skull and Bones, right?
Exactly, Skull and Bones. What's the other one? Nexium. They kind of did the similar thing where you'd have to take like compromising pictures or some kind of blackmail proof that would absolutely guarantee that you've got an actual incentive to stay in this group and not offend anyone in it, and obtain your oaths. In case, like a death oath wasn't bad enough, it would be like, well, now we've also got these compromising photos to ruin you. Well, Weishaupt and the Bavarian Illuminati had this exact same thing in place. And on top of you submitting it for yourself, they would have people spying on each other. And let's say like Joe and Bootsy, you guys are both in the Illuminati, but you're not going to know it because I get to be Adam, all right? So I get to run the Illuminati.
Okay.
Like you guys, like you're gonna be the expert in like grimoires and hermetic philosophy and just like all that deep alchemical information that I need. And Bootsy, you get to be like the highly technical scientific guy, like you're up to date on heliocentrism and the latest actual like chemistry and a little bit more into like the science aspect. You guys don't know each other, but you're going to spy on each other. I'm gonna be like, Joe, go spy on this Bootsy guy. You don't know that he's in the Illuminati. Like, maybe we're seeking him for a candidate. Maybe he's an enemy. So just spy on him. And then Bootsy, the same thing. Like, hey, this guy is going to be out there. He might be trying to spy on you, but we want you to spy on, you like make it so it's a game and they both think that they've got this, ultimate mission. And
Sounds awesome.
You're getting
When
all
we
this
start.
information on everyone around. And these aren't just like random Joe Schmoes. These are like the height of, like Joe, you are the guy at grimoires and, hermetic philosophy. And Bootsy, you are the guy in science. So, now if anyone asks me some crazy question that only the best philosopher, the best alchemist in all of Bavaria or Europe would know, I'm just like, oh yeah, I know that, and I think it's not real time, right? We're not on like a live podcast. So you write a letter and I've got like 2 or 3 weeks to figure out the answer. And I can just use my network and be like, hey, Joe, what's the answer to this crazy, thing? And then I write back and I'm like, oh yeah, I already knew this. Here, let me tell you the answer real quick. And then I look like this all-knowing, all-seeing, like I know what you're up to, Joe. I know what you're up to, Bootsy. I've got answers that anyone asks me.
Crowley did that too with
and I think
recordings.
I think people saw how well this worked and how it worked. And like we were talking about before, once you've got the formula or the pattern or the process down, like it just becomes second nature. So after time, these secret societies, that just kind of gets baked into their process of, well, we're just going to have a whole bunch of information on you and pit people against each other. And so anyways, this is the atmosphere in which this was all going down. So when this name of this list of names gets exposed out into the public and the show's kind of over for the Bavarian Illuminati, and just as they had infiltrated Freemasonry to sort of boist up their numbers and get some established characters and, people to look at them seriously, as soon as they exploded, they kind of dissolved right back into Freemasonry and took all of these sort of like higher level degrees, quote unquote, from Memphis Misrium and all over angles. And they kind of brought that with them to these other lodges along with this process in mind. And I think that that's kind of what happens is that now you've got, I think, essentially French Freemasonry. It just kind of started there and expanded outwards. And we can talk about the Carbonari in Italy. And go ahead.
Is that where French Freemasonry started, do you think, from all that stuff? Like, is that what you're saying?
They all had a genesis around a very similar time. And at the height of the Bavarian Illuminati, the fact that they were recruiting people from Freemasonry was like divided. There was like 3 or 4 major factions within Freemasonry, all fighting amongst each other. And the Vatican essentially also had a stake in this, and they all got together, and I forgot the exact date because I have my notes. They all got together and they were like, okay, this is the rules of Freemasonry, and if you don't abide by these rules, then you're basically co-masonry, or you're like some other thing that we don't care about. And that whole schism, that was where the Illuminati was like, oh, we can pick up the pieces here, bro. Like, that guy's pissed, those guys are pissed, like, come, join our clique. And that's when they, like, their numbers swole really, really huge. So again, when they dissolved, those were mostly Freemasons that had made up their ranks. So those Freemasons just went right back into their lodges. So, and it wasn't exclusively French Freemasonry, but I have a long tangent about why I think French Freemasonry specifically might have been the kind of conveyor of a lot of that esoteric aspects of it.
You know what? I wonder why a lot of these people, like Steiner and Weishaupt and all these, a lot of these groups seem to have origins, or let's just say seed origins of people from Germany for some reason. Even when I studied and looked into this stuff, like the hidden masters of the Golden Dawn and all this other stuff, like if you trace it back, like the Asiatic Brethren and all these other people, it keeps going back into Germany. And I'm like, man, that's weird to me. For some
every
reason,
Disney movie, every folk tale, like, I mean, not every, but a vast majority of folk tales that even Americans and Europeans grow up on are specifically from what the Brothers Grimm, and they were essentially just looking through old Bavarian and Germanic folklore, and that's what is now represents like Western folklore as a whole. Yeah, I've got a lot of interesting thoughts on, like, there's so many aspects of German culture that pervade Western culture, when most of the time everyone likes to give credit to like the Romans and the Greeks, and those are kind of obvious, but that German influence, which kind of came in, 1800s, it's a fairly new influence that kind of like swept over.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. I've seen a couple of different channels that do like, lost wisdom and the Oralinda book. Have you looked into that at all? They're talking about these sort of
Orlinda?
OERA, Oralinda.
Hmm.
It's like an ancient book of like wisdom or whatever, but like the Germanic people and how like a lot of that history, that lineage, or several of those lineages that are perpendicular running, with the Greeks, that a lot of that stuff we just don't hear about, or it's locked up somehow, or we lost it or whatever. And it's all it's certainly not academic as far as how it's brought out. But I mean, it's not as fantastical as like the mud flood or something like that. It's a little bit more like there are some interesting ideas and theories and some evidence of other societies that are sort of more Germanic societies along the same time as like the Greeks and all that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, Plato and those, they talked about Atlantis and stuff. So,
and it's not like the Greeks were the only culture around. It's just that, they get all the shine, we don't give a lot of shine to the other ones.
It's true.
Well, I think it's in our nature to start societies because I think it's in our nature, like, because we're tribal, right? So I think when one person starts studying the mysteries and things like that, and then he talks to a bunch of people that don't care, and he's like, but I care, I care about human growth, so to speak, right? I care about enlightenment and perfecting, human nature and all this other stuff. And I think there's something in our mind that says, well, I'm above a certain class. I mean, like if you listen to, Manly P. Hall's books, he has like, even his books, right? He has like quotes in there. Well, there's 4 types of people, and he's like categorizing these people by brain power, and it's like, well, who the hell do you think you are, dude? Like, just because you got, some sugar mamas and got to go around and study all this stuff real fast. I mean, like, it's cool, but I think back then, because they didn't have internets or phone or anything like that, like when you started learning stuff like this, it was a big deal, right? Like it was like, wow, it's like coming across something magical, literally, and then trying to hold on to it. I think information
you didn't have
was
fact
probably
checkers
different.
like disputing every fucking thing that you said, right? Like you'd make some grand observation, you don't have a bunch like, oh, it's false because in this year someone so said this.
Exactly. Yeah, and so even the rabbis, when they created the Talmud or the Babylonian Talmud, they would destroy each other creating that thing, just back and forth, talking, arguing about stuff, just to create laws about things, and now all of that stuff these people did, it's just nothing now. It's like on the internet, and we can just pull it up and play with it. But back then, I guarantee they thought it was like they were really something. You know what I mean? They were really something.
Yep.
I think it's funny. I'm just saying, it's observation,
It is really funny that you would pay thousands of dollars and maybe even, an HJ in order to find out something that you could just type into Google. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like if they had somebody that traveled back in time was like, look, guys, all this shit's going to be on the, like I could hit a button and all this stuff you guys are killing each other to find out, I'll be able to find out in a second.
But if you commit sex acts for it, you value it so much more highly. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
You got to charge with that energy.
It'll stick with you forever.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think there's I think there's some interesting things with that. And now, like you said, like a lot of the stuff that we can kind of look out onto the table. But at that time, everybody's looking for an edge. Everybody wants that secret sauce, whatever that is, that juice.
We still do as humans. That's what I'm saying. It's in our nature, right? Like we're trying to find some type of power edge over our lives and over everything, even whether it's knowledge or science or whatever. Like it's in our nature to do it, So I think it's cool that Thomas got into looking at, because I get so far with it, and then I'm like, I can't right, like do this anymore. And I just get like this intuitive thing where it's like, yeah, these crazy people came from Germany. What it is about Germans that we're into this stuff. And as soon as you say Germans, people are going to think Nazis, Hitler, they originated the occult and all this other stuff. And that's conspiratorially cool, but it was going on in Germany before the World War. So, you know, like, I don't know. It's just
Well, and
trippy.
I've still got
Germanic too.
Sorry, I've got a strong theory that without the Brothers Grimm, Hitler might not have ever even come to power, because that whole strong like wave of new German nationalism might not have happened without the Grimm brothers, you know, reinvigorating everyone into that, like the thing that their grandparents, you know, were so hyped up about.
Yeah, that is cause and effect.
I would like to go into that Brothers Grimm stuff at some point. That is very fascinating to me. Like, for sure, it's super duper duper interesting.
Well, I wanted to poke out here too for the Bavarian Illuminati. Another really cool thing that kind of like you guys were just mentioning, of everyone kind of falls for this one hook, and it's if you're like a king or a prince, and you know you're rich, and you've kind of already hit the top of anything you can hit, especially in Europe, then you find out that, you know, Joe over here, like, this dude's got some secret ancient knowledge from 1,000 years ago. It is such a fancy little sparkly carrot. It looks so tasty when you've already got, you know, when I can just buy anything I want out in the material world, or hire anyone I want to like paint and everything. But if I hear that Joe's got secret knowledge that, you know, thousands of years ago was also secret knowledge, and only kings knew about it, it's such an easy, you know, way to con people into stuff. And I think that grift, bro, that grift still exists today in so many forms, right?
Yeah, it is shiny object syndrome. We've all fell for it, man. It's like, man, I'll make your dreams come true. I know something that will give you the edge over everything, man, and just have more power over your life than you've ever had. You know,
those like 2 or 3 a.m. infomercials that's like, maybe I could get rich doing this shit. Like,
yeah, that's why they're on at that hour, because they're like, you're just delirious enough that you're like kind of in the in-between state. Like, you might go for it, man.
Those delta waves hit.
That's right.
So basically, like, information products or pyramid schemes nowadays are kind of equivalent to those societies back then.
I mean, very much so. And honestly, the natural evolution of, you know, Freemasonry, especially as it came in the United States, it was like trade unions and like little groups that promised that they could get you jobs, and they could get you, like, dude, if I don't know if you know any locksmiths, but locksmiths to this very day operate very much on like having this secret knowledge that's not written down in manuals and books. And if you want to become a locksmith, you kind of have to find a mentor, and
you got to know how to
do
pick
like
locks,
a legit apprenticeship, just like, you know, kind of like a free, you know, entered apprentice. Like,
see, that's cool.
But locksmiths are legitimately doing that with their actual trade. Like, it's not like a fancy, like, they don't show up with an apron and do like little dances and like movements. It's like, no, you better show up and know how to fucking open this lock really quick. You know what I mean? And then after you do that long enough, then they teach you how to get the bigger and bigger ones. And I assume that like at the top level, right, you've probably got the dudes with the
wasn't there a movie on Netflix about that? There was just oh man, I forget the name of it, but these people were robbing a bank. Yeah, they're robbing a bank, and they needed this one really good locksmith who was good at unlocking all kinds of stuff. And he's from Germany, I think, actually, or, you know, funny enough, but I forget the name of it. It was just like popped in my head though. But that's cool.
I think it's a good example of like modern day, the exact same thing still exists.
So could we look up on the internet what locksmiths are teaching people though? I mean, come on.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that, I mean, you can buy the little locksmith kits and you can get some videos and stuff, but even the videos and some of like the higher end kits, I mean, unless you want to spend $300 on a video, I mean, that's how much does it cost to, you know, join the Masons? It's probably around $300 or something. So
yeah.
Potato, okay. No.
Right. No, I get it.
And then if you start posting it, like, you got a bunch of dudes that know how to open all your doors are going to be mad at you now. You know what I mean? So
that's a good point. Yep. Yeah. It's so much easier to bribe those folks because you can just break into their house at any point in time. Oh my God, that's so funny. But yeah, I mean, it works the same way, right? Like, works the same way. A lot of the digital marketing, that kind of stuff is like, come on in, you know, and a lot of times that stuff comes with mentorship. So, you know, if it's a good thing, it's good for you, then that's one thing. And then there's a bunch of stuff too that, you know, maybe it just sucks. I don't know. I haven't been into the Masons, per se, but I've done like a couple of multi-level marketing schemes in my day. Can't have helped that. And I think some of them were certainly better than others. But the stuff that these folks are pitching in the Illuminati is that they're going to get you power over, other people. You're going to have abilities maybe that you didn't have. And this is where I think the secret rituals and this kind of stuff starts to come into play. And what the thing that people are really enticed by, as Thomas was saying, like that king, that priestly prince or whomever who's got all the resources, right? Like they've been on the yacht parties with Pfizer, you know what I mean? Like they're having a good time. And so they don't need any help in that department, but they're still missing something. So this is what religion gets you with too, I think, in my opinion, right? Like you're still missing something. Something seems like it's just, you don't quite have yet. But these are some of the things where we start to get into some of the ritual stuff. And I would love to hear from you, Joe, on some of these ideas and how that fits in with some of the secret societies.
Well, sure. I mean, most of the ritual stuff that I've been a part of is Freemasonic ritual and magic ritual are not that different. They're really not. I mean, and it's not much different than, as far as ceremonial magic is concerned, it's not much different than what the Catholic Church is doing. What we have to understand, I think, is what we're beginning to understand, if you want to get into hermetics, is it's all done by faith. It's all done by faith that these things called the elements and the planets and the zodiac and all of this stuff actually do have some sort of force or power over our lives, right? Number one. And then it's also on this like Franz Barden kind of thing too, where we're trying to manipulate energy. So we're trying to do both. We're trying to align things at certain times, and we're also trying to manipulate energy. So this is all stuff that's unseen. It's only provable by coincidence or record. So this is why astrology is so big. Like we can't even get into the fundamentals of why the planetary energies work. However, we do have records and records and records and records of what happens during certain alignments. So it can't be coincidence because we have so many records, right? Like, you see what I'm saying?
Because the pattern's repeatable. It's knowledge. Well, I mean, there's this saying, right? Like you've probably heard this, like millionaires don't study astrology, but the billionaires do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's like having awareness of certain things that other people are not privy to gives you a leg up. It helps you to succeed a little bit better. It gives you a little bit of foresight and helps you plan for the future a little bit better as far as astrological stuff, pattern wise.
Yeah. And also, like, the thing that I don't like about Freemasonry and magical societies and things like that is they're not really explaining to you why you're doing the rituals to begin with, or what is this doing to my subconscious or my unconscious.
Do you think they even know? Because a lot of the times
I don't think, I think
they even know.
I think they have a theory. Like some of them know, if they, and the people in the Golden Dawn know, right? I'm not sure about Freemasonry, right? But my point is like, if you know, you should be telling the neophytes or the people that are coming into this, hey, once you start doing ritual, once you start messing with symbols or start acting these things out, you're playing upon your own unconscious, right? You should tell the people, because people don't know that. They're like, oh, I'm going to be a Freemason. Let me pay my lodge dues and, get in here and just start doing this stuff, right? But what I even noticed once during a Freemasonic ritual was a guy actually start crying when he was doing the ritual, and it didn't tell me why. And you don't see that a lot, right? You don't see people cry or whatever. But what I don't think he understood is like, maybe there were some things that were being unlocked in him that he didn't even understand the ritual. He didn't even know what it meant. You know what I mean? But he started crying. It's kind of like when we watch a movie that's got a lot of symbols in it. They were like, I don't even know why I like this movie, but I'm addicted to it for some reason, or it's telling a deeper story. Like The Fifth Element, everybody loves that movie, But I think if it didn't have occult symbolism in it, it would be, other than Chris Tucker, it would suck. Like nobody would watch it.
Funny that you mentioned Chris Tucker, but so here's what I think is also interesting there too. So we could liken this again to a marketing agency.
Yeah.
It was like, just do this, post this blog on your fucking website, do this ad on your Instagram.
Yeah.
They don't tell you why. You know,
email
it's like,
marketing and
yeah,
all
exactly.
this shit, right?
It's just you got to do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, or even worse than that, like hire us to do this for you, and then they just get you stellar.
Or you could come work for us if your dream's not coming true. Well, you know what? Help our dreams come true, right? And
There
just
you
tell
go.
everybody how awesome we are.
There you
You
go.
tried, but we showed you the formula, and that's just the thing. Like, there's a mindset of, I think people need formulas, right?
Mhm.
Like, and then there's another mindset that's like, I have the inner resources to figure all this out on my own and do stuff on my own. I'm gonna be okay. You see what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
totally. Yeah. Well,
I think deep down there's a really boring nugget, like just like the Bavarian Illuminati, they're putting these carrots out in front of you. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna learn all this, but when you really get down into it, when you get to like that very core inner temple, they're essentially just gonna say, yeah, you get out of it what you put into it, and no one wants to hear that in the inner sanctum. You know what I mean? So they'll do it after like a big grand, a big fire explosion, and they'll do some incense going on and wearing cloaks. But then there's essentially just going to be like, hey, dude, whatever you put into it, you get back out of it. It's kind of maybe like an anticlimactic.
Yeah, maybe that's where the saying "blowing smoke up your ass" comes from. Because maybe at the end ritual, they literally blow smoke up your ass, and then they're like, "Guess what? You're the ritual. It's you." Gotcha, bitch. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, we could, plot twist, fast forward, because we've talked about that a lot on this channel, just and in general, right? Like that it is about us, like spirituality and seek, like this is what this podcast is about. Like, let's put this into brass tacks. You are the miracle. You are the child
you're
of
the
God.
tree. Yeah, you're all of it.
Yeah, all of it.
You're all the gods, all of it. Like, it's all in you. Yeah. And so therefore you can call upon any of it anytime you want. The only thing that stops you is like your own beliefs. And this is what the chaos magicians understood too. They're like, well, do I have to use like Egyptian? And no, you can use comic book characters if you want, Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, honestly, what we understand about this now versus like the pyramid schemes of this secret, powerful information that we have back in the day. And I still think it's going on today, but just not like, what the Bavarian Illuminati was doing to people back in the day, right? I mean, did you guys ever get like Facebook messages of people saying, do you want to join the Illuminati? I've got some secret stuff. And people are still using that, all that glitters is gold thing, trying to get you to sign up to their stuff.
I mean, I've seen one that was like something silly, like 15 grand to join, but you only got to get like one person to fall for that, right? And it pays for itself. So,
dude, okay, I'm probably gonna piss some people off, but the one thing about I don't care. The one thing about the Bavarian Illuminati is that they were like, well, we want to be enlightened human beings, essentially autonomous human beings, free from the government and all this other stuff, and we're going to teach you how to naturally become more enlightened and a more powerful person. Now, that's going on today too. They're just digital information products or services, right? Where people are putting themselves up and name dropping other people and putting themselves up on high platforms to say, we can teach you how to be like us, right? But really what they're doing is what they should be teaching you is how to change your mindset to become less dependent upon anybody, right? To even teach them. And just say, I have the inner resources to be a free person and I can learn anything and recover from anything and live the life I want. But that's not worth money.
$299.99 and 6 easy payments.
That's not worth money, right? So you get people invested and you make a whole bunch of courses or rituals and you make them go through a bunch of stuff and they get their little diplomas or laminate pieces of paper and it's all good, right? And they got fancy glyphs on them. And people used to balk me for that too, because they're like, oh, you were in the Golden Dawn. Did you get your black belt or whatever, And I thought, well, I understand where they're coming from, right? But to me, the Golden Dawn is like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu of martial arts, right? People see this big book and they go through just packed full of occult information. Like, I'm not doing that. That's a lot. I'll talk to you about that, but, and then the same thing if you go to like Taekwondo. Dude, all you got to do is pay your money and you'll get a green belt. But if you go to Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you're not getting a belt unless you start whooping people's ass.
You might get a dislocated knee or something.
Yeah, you're not. It's a whole different thing, right? To me, it's a whole different thing. And so that's kind of why I stuck with the Golden Dawn stuff. I'm not saying they don't hand out things. It's a system too, but I think all of these societies should have just been honest. That's all I'm saying. Like, just tell people up front what's going on.
Well, I think, you were talking a little bit about like how there's like a template or a pattern. And then there's also, this idea of you got to learn yourself. You got to look within you. You have access to everything. And I think that's kind of the value of something like this, is that they can give you processes. Now, what is the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. If I sit down and I explain all this stuff to you, like, here's what this means. Here's what this is about. This is about you. This is your soul. This is, your brain and your heart, working together. Like, I know that sounds simplistic, but this is what it is. And then you just don't do anything with it. Then,
I mean, you say lead a horse to water, but I mean, a similar analogy would be pearls before swine, which
exactly, yeah.
And this is kind of like gets into a dicey area, because if you're saying pearls before swine and I'm Adam Weishaupt and I get to decide who's swine,
right? Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, like, there's this air of elitism and sort of like manipulation and like a power, but there's also like, if you step outside, let's say we're talking about, we're like Greek philosophers, and like you're one of these dudes that you have to like be silent for 4 years before you're even allowed into the school, and then I can like start teaching my philosophy. That's kind of a similar aspect to it, but instead of like me selecting you because of your status or your position somewhere in society, you kind of got it. What was the Fight Club guys where like he gets outside and he's like, go home, this isn't for you, get out of here, and you just had to stay on that doorstep for like a week or whatever and just get berated. And once you passed
you're too fat or you're too blonde.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would have been a pretty badass Illuminati entrance ritual, right? Because you're fat, you're old.
Well, too, they should say there's something to be said about ritual and stuff like that, and symbols where, okay, so I can look you in the eye and say, well, I know I'm a child of the divine, right? Which sounds really new agey. Well, I know how special I am, right? So we all say that.
I'm an indigo child.
Yeah, but unconsciously, do we really believe that and know what we're capable of? Understanding our own, what I'm saying is understanding our own power. So through these rituals, also, I'm not saying it's all bad, because through taking people through rituals and processes and things like that, these symbols and rituals start unlocking things with these, neural pathway crap that we've traumatized ourselves with because our parents told us we weren't shit, right? So, I mean, you don't have to join a society to do that, but it's no different than NLP, hypnotism, or any of that stuff. It's just a bigger and more glamorous, way of unlocking things where you have those aha moments and you're reprogramming yourself, so to speak.
Yeah, dude. I love the roast. Like, we're going to roast you to get in here. You're going to have to earn it. Like, that's so good.
Oh yeah.
But like, that's the beautiful that I think you really open up the discussion right there, because, you can become part of a group. And it's like we were maybe saying earlier, I don't know if we were rolling yet or not, but that we just want to be part of a community that, and then we can key and cue off of other people and learn from them, right? Like, there's trial and error. Did this work for you? Let's try it this way. Let's do that. And then now you have like a community of people who are, seeking out similar information, who are wanting to experience things and doing it together. And you start to build, some knowledge, some experience, some feedback loops and stuff like that. And maybe start to get that information in that, hey, you are worthy. If this person's worthy, you see what this person can do. You start to cue off that. And that can definitely help the psychology of somebody. Because like, if you're in your own house by yourself, like myself, I have been, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try this and see if it works. I don't know. Maybe did I do it right? And then you half-ass it. You don't know, but if you invest. One of the things, my dad wanted me to finish college so bad. It was like such a big deal. I didn't want to do it, but he was like, it'll prove to you that you can do something that takes a long time, that you will finish something that's a long investment of time. And I'm like, all right, now that I'm 40 years old, almost, I get that. I'm like, all right, I understand why you said that and felt that way. I get it. And so doing a discipline or having some sort of a thing that you're invested in, you can learn a lot faster. I think that mastery of like, it takes 10 years to be able to do this. Well, if you have other people to key off of who you can learn with, and you leverage the law of environment that Napoleon Hill talks about, and like a lot of people talk about the rule of 5 or the law of 5, and you're around the mentors and people that you can kind of key off of, you can see their success, then you can model it. Now you're also picking up these subconscious behaviors, even gestures and all that kind of stuff without even knowing it. So actually what I'd really like to talk a little bit about is that those subconscious programs in the rituals, and what those basically might be saying or laying out as these people are going through these systems. They're going through these rituals. Maybe they have no idea what they actually mean, but what is their subconscious mind picking up from doing them and learning from?
Well, I mean, as far as Freemasonry is concerned, it's really taking you through the walk of, birth, death, and resurrection, right? Like it's all about that, the regenerative mysteries of being born again, so to speak. And then they break it down even further. As far as like, the Golden Dawn is concerned, though, right? It's like the elements. So when you do these rituals, you start out just learning how to like, I guess, protect yourself or make yourself a median, like balanced energy. And they even believe that the middle pillar increases life energy, right? And there's other people out there that talk about, like Dr. Claude Swanson talking about torsion fields and things like that. So they believe this stuff, okay? And then you get into the elements, which is pretty much the tarot card story. You get into the elements first, and you start invoking elements, right? One at a time, one step at a time. And as you invoke these things, whether it's psychologically or it has some magical thing, either way, it works. And so people think, well, what are you doing? Are you manifesting fire and earth and air and water? And no, you're about to put yourself through hell. That's what you're about to do. So you're manifesting things into your life to help you balance out these parts of yourself, and you'll keep running up against them. And I wish I could explain it scientifically, but I can't, right? So for instance, if you're going through the earth grade or whatever, and you're doing your earthly rituals and invoking the earth element, it's silly. It's just like, this is silly. Like, this is stupid. But for some reason, it causes the mind to focus all the time on earthly matters, whether it's your finances, your physical body, your health, or even weird things will happen in your life, like health matters and stuff you need to take care of, and we have records of this too, from magician to magician doing this stuff. And then they get all this balance, and then they say, okay, well, you're ready to go to the inner order, which if you look at all the mysteries, there's 3 stages, right? Everything else is like a breakdown. So the second stage in the mysteries is, balancing yourself. You've already balanced yourself out, elemental. You've been reborn. You've done the pentagram story. So now you're about to move into the hexagram story, which is the planetary energies and astral travel and all this other stuff. And it starts to feel like, oh, this is real. This magic thing is real. It's like Harry Potter, and I'm learning a bunch of cool stuff. But what it is just intuitively things that have been handed down since the beginning of time that we've been doing. And it's really should have never been secret to begin with, I don't think. Right. Even back when people say, well, back then people were stupid. Well, how do we know they were stupid? Just because they were like, they didn't have the internet?
They were probably a lot smarter than us, if we're being objective about it. Like, even if they maybe were under a different type of spell. I mean, I think people assume that we're smart. We're a smarter generation because we have access to more technology. It's actually done the opposite. It's made us a lot dumber, I think.
If they're so smart, then where the hell are they now?
Yeah, right. They're dead.
I can't argue with that.
Well, the Egyptians understood something, right? Like they could have. They made a lot of dogma. They had their 42 god systems, and then they had a different age of Egyptian stuff, but it lasted 3,000 years, and they had their own technologies we're still trying to figure out today. Like, if you watch Magical Egypt, there's stuff on there that none of these Egyptologists talk about. That's amazing. But it all goes back to the planets, this astrology, the elemental forces, the kundalini, the sexual forces, things like that. And it all of this stuff goes back to that. The rest of these little like groups of, whether it's Bavarian Illuminati or join my new learn how to be a free person group today or whatever, you know, it's all about self power or being free, because you don't feel that way right now. You feel like a victim, and they know it, and they don't want you feeling like a victim.
Well, there's a lot in the self-help where
You
it's
know.
like, oh, you're everything almost. You just got to buy my program.
You just got to keep
You
going.
know?
I got one more thing.
That's
One
right.
more
You're
thing. Yeah.
almost there. You just need my Instagram secrets, and you'll.
Well, that's not like, oh, you're at the 3rd degree. Did you know that there's 33 degrees?
There's
Oh, 33.
yeah.
Did you know there's 98 degrees? You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
that's the like, you're never done. You've always got to, you know, sign up for the next level. They just got unlocked, and you even know about it. The new DLC just dropped, you know?
Yeah.
But look, if there's, I think there's also people that go through that stuff because they want to learn it. Like, I know people that have done all that stuff. They don't talk about it, but then all of a sudden there's other people on the internet that do it, and they're like on Facebook holding up their aprons and look, I got my Egyptian right this and my 33rd degree, and they're all decked out in their aprons and stuff, like looking all special.
They got like a full sleeve like tats of just like the like
Illuminati
hieroglyph legend on their arm.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? So it's like there's two mindsets. There's people that want to unlock this knowledge in themselves and only care about the knowledge, and then there's other people. It's like status. Like, look at me. I got to look at my new Rosicrucian Egyptian gangster uniform with all my symbols on it, and I'm like, dude, this is weird. I wonder what would happen.
I strongly think it takes the latter of those two guys. Those are the ones that uphold the society itself, because if you go and you're like, oh, like, I get it now, I can go back and be a hermit again and just kind of like go back to my cave and just practice this by myself. Like, I don't need you guys. I got the system now. Like, then the society falls apart within 10 years. And
so are you saying we need the gangsters that are holding up everything?
I mean, you know? I think those like fancy, you know, it's the Boy Scout badge syndrome, where it's like anyone can learn how to start a fire, and like anything that's in that Boy Scout manual, you can go out and learn to do on your own without paying to be in the Boy Scouts and then getting the patches. But there's something about being that completionist, and like, as a reminder to you, and I would even to kind of bring this into what we were talking about before, of like, if it's NLP or if it's hypnosis or if it's magic or if it's MK Ultra mind control, I kind of put those all in like, you know, those are the different blind men touching the elephant in the dark room. Like, they're all touching the exact same thing, but everyone's seeing it in like their own little, you know, their own kind of rose colored glasses. To some people it's magic, and but I think it's all sort of that. And with these rituals, to kind of put that on a point, like in NLP, you've got this concept of anchors, right? And usually if you're doing a presentation, you do an anchor when you raise your voice, or you stomp your foot on the stage and you make some big point that you're going to call back to in like 20 minutes or something. You're establishing those anchors. I mean, it's not the same as MK Ultra trauma-based mind control where someone's like injecting you with adrenochrome or something, but it's an anchor nonetheless. And you stomping your foot down, that's a traumatic event within the context of, you know, a boring speech of some dude talking. But that's a traumatic event, the same way that you go through like a Freemasonic ritual, or I assume in like the Hermetic or the Golden Dawn, they probably have some like big revelation where there's like a loud sound and a flash of light or something that goes on there to make it very theatrical.
Oh,
it's that same NLP anchor, and it's like, bam, now we're going to instill this
it's
concept.
And
you don't have to even understand what they're telling you, because like they've designed this entire play to crescendo with this part, and you're going to have certain, you know, you're going to have like a certain olfactory scent going on. There's a certain lighting, and maybe people are close to you or they're far away from you to make you feel crowded or make you feel isolated. And there's all of that
incenses you can smell,
and then exactly,
like,
and then someone like hits you or a light goes off, and then bam, like you just got programmed. So now you can kind of like tap back into those little series. And I mean, again, that's CIA does that. Maybe I would say you can do it to yourself if you know NLP. If you do have a baptism as an adult, right? They dunk you into the water, and it's this big show, and everyone's like clapping, and oh my god, I can see you're glowing now. You know what I mean? You're obviously a different person, and you'll remember that event for the rest of your life.
Like, oh, brother, where art thou? All my sins have been washed away because the preacher said so. You know.
And I consider all that traumatic. It might not be, you know, good trauma, bad trauma, But it's like these anchors.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, it's like a psychological device, that triggers a certain response, and I think kind of like we said before, it's like we get to the end of it and we're like, that's it.
Well, listen, I'm not going to lie to you guys, and I know you're probably going to laugh at me because I'm not a pragmatist in the total sense of the word, but I do not believe that Hermetic magic is entirely psychological. I just don't. There's a lot of people that believe that. I don't. I think there's some realness.
You think
to
it's physical? There's a physical manifestation that could be measured by, like physical based tools.
I don't know. We don't have one right now to do that. All we know is this like when it's just like astrology, right? Like when I'm talking about real astrologers, all we know is that what happens when we do these processes, right? Like we have records of what happens to us, and on when a person's going through his own transformational or transcendental journey, there's things that are going to happen to him or her that they're not going to be able to explain, because when they do, it's like, well, that's just psychology. Well, that's just your mind focusing on this thing. It's like, really? So I peeled myself out of body or saw these certain things that happened to me, or had to deal with a whole bunch of intense stuff that happened to be right along with that element, like I had paranormal activity happen to me, like, and then you find yourself in an argument with a super skeptic or someone who's never even done these things or put the effort into it to do it, right? But you also understand it, and it's like there is a psychological element to all of this stuff for 100% sure. It's just like, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it to like transcend yourself, to open up knowledge? Are you doing it to protect yourself? Are you doing it to evoke things into the physical world? Like,
are you doing it because you're insecure and you want more self-confidence?
Right. Yeah. Are you doing it to understand things? Like you're waiting until you get to a certain planetary alignment and you say, I want more knowledge about this, or show me this in a dream. Like, why are you doing these things?
So I'm curious if there was like the ultimate carrot being dangled in front of you guys to join the Illuminati or whatever. Like, what would that carrot be for you guys? Like, what would what is it?
It's too late. I already sold my soul to the Illuminati folks.
Did you for real?
What was the carrot?
We forgot to play our touch the nose game. You know what I mean? Like,
Joe's in the Illuminati.
I'm not in the Illuminati. Sorry.
You were the last one, bro. I'm sorry.
I forgot, dude. I blank out sometimes, man. So
no, I mean, I have been solicited on Instagram. I don't mean to brag, but
the ultimate carrot. That's a really good question, though. Actually.
The ultimate carrot, man. I don't know. That is a really good question. I would have probably thought about it years ago for some sort of a talent, like to be able to play music or something like that.
Oh, your bar's pretty low. I don't mean that in a bad way, but like I need to see someone float and shoot lasers out of their hands, and I need to be able to like go around them with like like a bat or something to make sure there's no wires and everything. And then if I see that, then it's like, all right, I think I might be down for this secret society.
I can't believe people actual
superpowers, though. You're talking about like real deal super. You're not talking about.
I want to see something
down
like,
to the
like undeniable, indisputable, like, and it can't just be like an acid trip where I forget about it the next day and you're like, oh no, trust us, that it all happened. Like, I want it to be consistent. I want to be able to like sneak up on you at like 8:30 in the morning and be like, yo, wake up, do the laser thing. I want to see it again,
What about like some aliens or something, or like a dragon or fucking, I don't know, some crazy cosmic sort of trip, but you did remember it, but you're not sure if it really happened in this world or another or something like that.
That's cool. To teach you how to lucid dream. That would be kind of impressive.
All of this stuff is, I mean, the earth has laws. You know what I mean? It's like the earth has laws. If you want to do magical stuff, you need to learn how to get out of your body and get into the astral realm, which was what most of the magic is about. Right. And then like, I'm not saying that we can't walk on walls and do the matrix stuff. Like, I don't know, but most of what magic teaches, as far as that's concerned, isn't anything to do with like shooting fireballs out your ass. It's just not.
It's more of a Dungeons and Dragons magic.
We're it's like, oh, so when I get to a Zelator up on the tree of life, I'm going to be able to shoot lasers out my ass, right? Like, no, it's not what it's for. You know, it's more, it's self mastery, but on a like understanding the more subtle parts of yourself that
I mean,
we don't care about because we're eating honey buns every day. You know, like we have to figure this stuff out. You know.
I mean, it's a little bit of a hyperbole, right? Like floating around and shooting lasers. But I guess the point is for a completely skeptic and fully biased third party observer to observe something through their senses. Because what else do we have other than our five senses? Unless maybe you can telepathically, implant like a thought, like, here I am giving you proof, like my mouth isn't moving, but you can hear me speaking, kind of thing. Like
That'd be cool.
some sort of, again, just whatever it is, it would have to be so undeniable that even the most thick-headed and biased skeptic would just be like, holy cow. And that's honestly, that's the kind of thing that happened to me multiple times, that eventually it chipped away at just being like an angry sort of atheist, antagonistic skeptic all the time, after just like so many times of like, whoa, that was kind of weird. And I think some people come from the other angle and they have to like become hardened over time as opposed to getting softened.
Well, I mean, you if someone tells you, that's my point, that this circles back around to my first point. Like, before you get people signing up to things, you should tell them what they're going to go through and what it's about and like what's really going on, right? Like, we don't do this yet to people. You guys know this. I hate that stuff though. Like, don't you just keep pulling me around till we get to your agenda. Like, tell me what the hell's really going on before I sign up. Like, why am I drawing circles and pentacles and stuff like that, right? Why am I staring at flashing colors? And tell me why, but they didn't do that back then. Now we can just read why if you really want to figure it out.
Now we got copywriters and they'll fucking tell you. Believe you me. But no, I want to hear, Thomas, about some of your experiences, because I agree with Joe. I don't think that magic is just psychological. I definitely think it's psychological, but I think there's more to it than that. And I won't say as to necessarily go more further than just mindset alone. But in my experience and from my observations, I see a dramatic impact of people's mindset and their circumstances over and over and over again. So I would make that just as an argument on the basic surface level, as far as like just stuff that's kind of beyond, just psychological, that there isn't an actual effect there. Not just that there's an effect within them, but there's an effect in their physical environment as well as the psychological environment. But I would love to hear any stories you might be willing to share where you had a glimpse.
Yeah, I don't have a great detailed ones unless we want to go on some just like, stoner tangents. But essentially it's like,
grab the fun.
I mean, there's NLP was a big one, because NLP, I could actually, like, someone did it on me and had me make a decision that I felt like it was a magic trick. It was essentially, the magician goes on stage and has you like write down some random word that only you could ever know, and at the end they know that word. A lot of that can kind of be like NLP, and it happens so specifically and often, and that I realized there was like a trick, like someone had a freaking game genie for the human brain, and that one kind of threw me for a loop. Lucid dreaming, A, finding out it wasn't BS, and then B, actually figuring out how to do it a little bit myself, was just like a whole nother world kind of opening up. And then on top of all of that, I would also say that just the concept, like anyone that's had like a psychedelic experience, it's just like it's that undisputable proof of this other thing. And that might just be like your neurons being confused and like sending, going around like the scenic route essentially in your brain and picking up colors and synesthesia and stuff. It might just be completely biochemical, but you could almost say that for anything that, we observe with our senses. It could just be like a biochemical reaction. And then I guess the other one too is I'm steeped in this conspiracy and like shock videos that got passed around in the 90s and 80s on VHS cassette tapes. And I'm pretty sure it was all BS, but I remember this one that I'll never forget. And it was like these like Buddhist monks out in the snow, and the dudes are just like, meditating, and they're raising their body temperature up to like 100 degrees, and the snow's like melting instantly. And just like that concept of, putting the human body to extremes where a Western doctor would walk up to that and be like, we need to kill this person, like put them out of their misery, or, you know, inject them with these chemicals and stuff. And then on the other end, you've got people that, you know, swim in the ice or hold their breath for, you know, more than 5 minutes and stuff. So, I mean, these extremes seem like almost uncanny. And I guess I'll put a little hat on top of this, is that even as a complete skeptic, I've always kind of believed in like this language of the birds, where, like, I'll give you an example, right? Like a common occurrence as a little kid is like, should I do, you know, option A or option B? If a blue car drives by, if the next car that drives by is a blue car, then that means that I should do option B or whatever. And that's very much magical thinking of like, you know, God, tell me, it's like, send me a sign. But that has happened so often, to where there was one in particular, and it's all coincidence, but I had this huge thick book on etymology. And I remember I was like, I wonder what if the book on etymology has a definition for etymology within it. How funny would that be? And I just open up this book of like 1,200 pages. Bam! The very first page I open up to, very first word, etymology. And like those kind of weird little synchronicities of like, what is there's literally, you know, I guess 1 in 1,200 chance, which isn't that bad, but but I mean, all of these weird, like, you know, synchronicities and coincidences, I've developed a rule that, you know, maybe like 3 I think is my limit. So like 1 coincidence, I can write it off. 2 coincidences, I could say maybe you're just paying extra close attention to this shit. The third one, I'm like, all right, hold on, strap in. You know, the aliens have tapped into my frequency right now. Let's see what they got for me.
No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I've been kind of on the other end of things where I had to, I've swung both ways, where somebody take this clip
swinging both ways. What?
But like, no, but where I had to be softened and I've had to be hardened. Yes, that's right. Like, take that out of context too. I really have, you know, where maybe I was really gullible for a while, and then I kind of got to the point where no, it has to make logical sense, objectivism, you know, and then I went from there back into more spiritual seeking and trying to understand and just integrate experience, feelings, vibes. And it's like, well, there is such a thing as a fucking vibe. I can prove that, you know.
Well, you're learning the internal, like, law of polarity, right? That's what you're learning, right? So like, if you took religion and let's say religion and science, right, or whatever, there's 2 sides of that same coin all the time, right? So you're learning as you grow, you're learning both sides of these things, and it's painstaking sometimes, but the lessons are learned nonetheless, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think it is. Yeah, there's definitely a balance there. I've just been out of it a bunch, but I'm going back to your point. Just talking about some of the experiences Thomas has had, but back to your point about this being more than psychological. I agree with that. You know, I said the mindset thing because it's observable, it's experiential, but I think even beyond that, you know, especially getting into, because like we could bring everybody in together and try to have an astral experience. Not necessarily everybody will.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
Somebody will. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bound to happen.
Did that before, yeah. Like some people did, and others just fell asleep. Other people were like freaking out because they didn't know how they scratched their face when their hands were on their legs, right? So it just like, it all depends on where you're at, you know. And I think there's something to these mysteries, like I do, but I think it's prevalent that it's, you know, it's a lot that has to do with you. It's just unlocking things about you, and you could do that on your own if you wanted to, right? But we can't say, well, there's no such thing as planetary influence. Well, that's not even a scientific fact. There is planetary influence, right? So, you know, especially like the moon, there's the sun and the moon and Mars, all these things. Or we could just say, well, they're just floating up there for nothing. They're coincidences, right?
They're holograms.
But yeah, they're just holograms just to distract us for some reason, you know. Yeah. It's funny how all the atoms and molecules and sacred geometry and everything shows us all the stuff works the same, but those are up there just for nothing, you know. They're just floating around, right? So it's like, at some point we have to realize, okay, there is a metaphysical world. Just because my 5 senses doesn't see it, right, doesn't mean it's not there, you know. And we have the same thing with like vision, you know. You've got all the different, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but you know, the fields of view that we can't see, right? It's the same thing. We've been experimenting with this stuff since the beginning of time. Sure. And whether it's happening egregorically because we've empowered it to, or it actually happens, I know for a fact like this stuff it's happened to me. You know, I haven't like shot fireballs out my ass. I haven't warmed up my body, but like some of the synchronicities, like, you know, what Thomas is talking about, have been insane.
Well, I'll give you another
insane.
example that I think as a more pragmatic one that would be just as impressive, but like not the inspirational freaking Tony Robbins style, but like legitimate firewalkers and dudes that jump off of cliffs into like these tiny little lagoons, or, you know, people that do like the most extreme things that like me just watching them makes me want to look away, and they're actually the ones doing it. But there's something about people that can like switch their mind and just be like, I'm gonna go and do this thing that every instinct in my body is telling me this is dangerous and that I shouldn't be doing. Maybe I'm just describing the show Jackass too. So maybe they're like the enlightened masters.
Well, there's like there's a difference in doing dumb shit and then like facing your fear. You know, facing your fear is but
facing your fear would be like a psychological thing that you can build up and train yourself and like psych yourself up. But I mean, when I'm talking about like magical, like someone that, you know, that doesn't have any fears, I guess, or they can just like turn that switch off. So like they're afraid until they want to do it. And yeah, like Steve-O, basically.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. But in the ritual, like in the neophyte ritual, it's funny because they do what Thomas is talking about, right? Like you come in blindfolded. You do that in Freemasonry too. So pretty much all these, you come in blindfolded, and this is on the internet. So I'm not breaking any oaths or anything like that. And they, you know, they start circumambulating you around the thing. And then you get to the banner of the West, or the banner of the West. And they have this dude pop out at you. You raise the blindfold a little bit, and he pops out of you and tries to hiss at you and scare you a little bit and shows you the symbol of the banner of the West. And he tells you it's to jump scare you, right? Mm-hmm. Jump scare you a little bit. And then he tells you fear is a fetter that binds, right? Mm-hmm. Fear is what disempowers you. And it's like, yeah, duh. You tell yourself consciously, duh, I know that. Okay, let's go on the ritual. Da, 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 da. But later on, you know, when you fear something, like say, oh, I really want that, but I'm afraid to do it. Now all of a sudden you're like, yeah, fuck it. Let's see what happens.
Anchor.
You know, and you don't, yeah, and you don't know what happened, right? And that's the psychological side of ritual. But doing things at certain planetary alignments, doing things for certain elemental reasons, or invocation and evocation, there's different things that you use it for, right? In magic versus just like psychological anchoring, you know.
Well,
which there's a lot of that in Freemasonry too, but I think Freemasonry has some.
Well, it gives you like a formula almost to follow, so that even if you don't understand what you're doing, the formula directs you to just repeat the process and get into sort of a physical mantra. Yeah.
It's, I mean, look, and I told you this at the event too, right? Magic isn't for everybody, and I'm a dysfunctional person. I said that I tried everything in society. I tried everything my parents told me, everything my teachers and my guidance counselors told me, everything, and none of it worked for me. So magic was the only thing that helped me.
Have you ever done like an e-meter or an audit session with Scientology?
Oh, dude, this is one thing that like I'll probably never do, because
I know. I would love to just have like I want to make sure that we make this a possibility somehow.
Listen,
I just want to get your opinion on it.
Okay, so first off, Scientology is all about self-empowerment, period. It's not really that magical. It's just a massively self-empowering kind of stuff, and it's the massively psychological.
Well, and this comes from Crowley, essentially. Crowley is like the brainchild of Scientology, even.
Yeah, but Hubbard learned his methods of like how to like empower students, but also kind of keep hold and keep sway of them in a way, right? He learned that from Crowley, the recordings and all that stuff. So Crowley did not get that from the Golden Dawn. He did that on his own, right? But here's the thing, like my neighbor was a Scientologist, and he talks to me about it all the time, and this dude is traumatized, and I can't get him to talk to me about it. I'm like, come on the show, dude, let's talk about it. And he's really afraid. He's afraid of them. And he said, hey, you ever noticed it in Scientology, like when people try to talk about it, or they have somebody on, or get into it, it gets shut down all the time.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, what about Magick or the Golden Dawn or the Rosicrucians or Freemasons? What about that? I said, no, we talk about that all the time. He goes, I'm telling you, man, I can't talk about it. And I'm like,
You guys,
what the hell?
magicians
the
don't
hell's
have the bankroll that Scientology does.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, what the hell did they do? Did they really scare the hell out of you? You know,
I think they
right?
got lawyers, bro. Like, isn't Scientology is like one of the only organizations in history that was able to like successfully break into like government offices and like
Yeah,
steal documents and got away with it, right? I mean, how many other still standing like individual organizations can claim that they've done that in recent history?
I would say that Scientology would be a modern day kind of like a Bavarian Illuminati kind of people, you know.
Yeah, you spy on your friends and report them, and if they toe the line or if they don't toe the line, then all of a sudden you get excommunicated from your friends and family. And like the guy that you're talking about, I can only imagine that if you've been in it for long enough that at a certain point in your life, every single person in your social sphere was all a Scientologist, and then if you kind of get rebuked by Scientologists, just imagine going back to that point in time in your life and like every single person in your support group would all kind of either hate you or, you know, shun you, or that would be kind of a terrifying aspect to think about.
His ex-girlfriend that he talks about all the time, who's been broke up with for 10 years, was a Scientologist too. So they were in it together. And, you know, he would tell me about their mind games that they played with each other and like the stuff they would do in society.
Like as a couple, like play
yeah,
games
as a couple, right? They're
yeah.
doing like these little power games, you know, in society, and they understand people in a different way and they know how to get what they want. And, you know, and he was like, man, she was so materialistic and I was too. And it just felt wrong and da, da, da. And then the more he talked about it, man, the more dark it felt to me. Right. I'm like, damn, this is because I'm pretty much into everything for love. Just to be honest with you. I know it sounds cheesy, but I am. Right. This felt dark as hell to me. And he's a good dude. He just like, he's either traumatized from the girl Scientology or all of it, you know.
I mean, my naive understanding is a large part of, and I'm probably totally wrong on this, just from movies and TV and horrible internet, you know, articles, but that a large component is almost like that movie Equilibrium, where like you have to just erase you know, happiness and joy, but also erase fear, erase depression, because every sort of extreme reaction or emotion you go through isn't you. It's one of those, you know, Ingrams or whatever the hell,
Thetans
like,
or whatever,
Thetans or something. Yeah, so it's like you got a laughing Thetan and a crying Thetan and like a scary fear Thetan, and I'm oversimplifying that obviously, because there's like for every Thetan there's like 10,000 Thetans that are all like very specific ones, and you have to pay think like $50 to $70 for each one extracted or something like that.
Think about how dark that is, right? So you got magic and let's say mysticism. Let's just say the white side of magic teaches you that your emotions are your power. They're your truth and your power, right? I'm not saying when you have an emotional reaction, that's your truth, right? But what you feel about a certain thing is your truth. In Scientology or NLP or the logical kind of thing, and this is the same way in like satanic groups too. It's like emotions, fuck them. They ain't nothing, right? It's about power, getting what you want, overcoming all that stuff, you know. And it's, you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can see this whole kind of like, regardless of what societies you want to call it, this like dark side and white side thing going on. It's like no emotions, throw it away, love, whatever. Yeah. Oh, sex, money, power. Yeah, let's do that. Sex, money, power. Actually, AI. Let's just get super logical. Let's get binary with it, dude. Let's get super powerful, you know. And the other way is, you know, it's like love to me.
Well, and what's kind of scary too is that now AI is getting to the point where it's so sophisticated that people are making artwork and making like fake girlfriend bots to fall in love with.
That.
So it's like it comes full circle, right? Like this removal from emotion and just pure logic. All of a sudden, it's going to get, you know, ham-fisted back into like, I don't know if you call it love, but it's trying to like recreate that same thing that it was kind of spawned out of rejecting for so long.
Yeah, so stupid, right? Because in our nature, we want emotional fulfillment as human beings. Like that's what makes us happy. But we're taught, it's weak. It's weak. It's weak. It's like I'm at this point on my journey. I'm like, no, you're weak. If you just want to stay in the mind and talk about logic all the time and stuff like that because you're afraid you can't have what you want in your heart, good for you. Go for it. You know what I mean? Stay safe, but you're not strong to me at all. And that's what these people are trying to teach you to be, like super logical, all this other stuff, dependent upon the system, every systems that we create. And if you need to know something, we've got another formula for it. We'll give you later,
We're still writing that one. We're still working on it in the back, but
it's not about your inner resources at all, right?
We have all the answers. We promise. I just need to write a letter to my friend.
There's like a cracked door, and there's like just like a room full of guys like furiously scribbling.
Yeah, trying to record it on their cell phones. What do you say? What do you say?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that's really well said. I mean, I agree. We see it a lot in society. There's definitely a left brain imbalance, but emotions, like, I don't think there's a better reward than like just feeling good emotions. Like,
yeah, man,
it's the best. And I mean, if you shut out your conscience and just sear it all together, then you're just going to be like just a robot of a person who has no personality, no soul, no charisma or any of that. You're just going to be a very self-involved and whatever, dude, to each his own. Like, people are willing to choose whatever path they want. I just don't think there's a lot of fulfillment or satisfaction or actual joy in that way. And, I would say too, on the emotional side, like, it's easy to be out of balance that way. And like,
well, that's what connects us, right? So, and it's also the thing that empowers us in ritual. We want to trigger those emotions so we can visualize what makes us happy to bring it into us, right? But without emotion, we're just like narcissists in our own comic book story all the time. Yes, we're the hero of my story, and all these people are just characters in my story. And that's how you live your life, right? But so without the emotional aspect, you wouldn't blend stories. You wouldn't look at people as equals. You wouldn't try to connect with them. Like, they're not training us this way. They're training us to be like wimpy ass narcissists, if that makes any sense. Like wimpy ass narcissists that want to just stay right there and just keep feeding us a ton of information. And then anything that might fulfill your heart or that you have to take a risk on is scary. You probably need to stay away from that.
I've got a.
And your daddy taught you that too. So
I've got a Terrence McKenna quote that I always love, and he says that civilization is 6 billion people standing on each other's shoulders, kicking each other in the face and the mouth, all trying in the pursuit of happiness. And it's sort of like the ultimate pyramid scheme, right? Like, if you get to be at the top and all you're doing is the kicking and you're not getting any of the kicked, then I guess you get to be the happy guy.
Yeah, that's when you realize, like, if you ever been around people that are super logical, or you're like, man, I love this dude or this girl or whatever, I love this person and whatever, this friend or this teacher or whatever. About 6 months later, you start realizing that you're just a character in their story. And then you start feeling disconnected. And then everything has to make logical, formulaic sense, and it's internet this and internet that. I sound like an old bastard right now. I just realized that. I sound like a freaking, I sound like my dad.
But I want to think too that if you become in someone's sphere that's like that, it's like they're the main character, that could almost, not in a bad way, but rub off on you of like, hey, I don't need to be a sidekick to a main character. Like, I can be a main character without also living like, because there's main character syndrome and there's like the brain in the vat, where it's like, you guys aren't even real. You're like Joe and Bootsy. You're literally here just for my entertainment. I'm the only real thing in the universe. Yeah, exactly.
Solipsistic tendency there, philosophically, right?
Yeah, so I think the Bavarian Illuminati and all this other stuff, that type of secret society where they're trying to dangle the carrot, is because they know that you don't feel like the hero in your comic book yet, and they want you to become that hero. And we've got some hero. It's like going to X-Men school. We've got it,
Well, and they're not going. And I was gonna say, they're not going after like the angsty teens that are like, cutting it home because they're insecure. They're going after like the smartest dude in each city and hyping those dudes up and getting them all sold on the carrots,
Yeah, that's actually pretty brilliant. So, you know, so when I talk to the people like in say the Golden Dawn, I thought I had that mentality. I'm like, man, I'm going to learn what like heaven really is and like how to like astral project and all the stuff I've been
Shoot
reading
lasers.
about. Yeah, and they said, look, yeah, you're going to learn some cool stuff, but let me tell you what's going to happen to you. You're going to go through. Let's take 4 lifetimes of karma where you need to learn something in your soul, and we're about to put it onto you in one. And it's like, yeah, but won't I get something cool in the end, right? And it's like, yeah, you get a sense of freedom that you can't explain, and it's like, well, that sucks. I want fireballs. You know what I mean? I don't want freedom. I want fireballs.
At least give me a funny hat, dude.
Yeah, like give me yeah, give me something cool, like a badge or whatever.
Yeah, give me some status, right? Like a little sash and some articles of bling or whatever,
Yeah. You get sashes and stuff too, but it doesn't like nobody cares because you don't see anybody. Not I don't anyways. Too many people like throwing up West Side, holding up Golden Dawn sashes and stuff, right? Like, but I get what they were talking about now, right? Because I don't know, like I want to be able to get out of my body. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I want to be able to get out of my body, become a ghost. I want to like know what I'm doing in the astral realm and try to like wake up a little bit. Most of us are just flying around playing with it right now. I think a lot of us are. If we can even get there. I haven't been able to get out of body in a long time. I blame the internet.
The right chemical mixture.
Oh yeah, it's some psychedelics, right? Some DMT. I did that too. DMT is not the out of body experience. DMT is death. That's what that is.
Yeah, I always liken it to like if you were to get into the passenger seat of like a NASCAR driver, a sports car driver, like they can drive you real fast around that racetrack.
Dude,
but you're not the one. You're not behind the wheel, dude. So like just because you've taken a trip 10 or 20 times doesn't mean you can get behind that F1 and like steer it and not kill yourself in the process, right?
That is the best analogy I've ever heard of anybody describe it, because that's exactly what it feels like. Like I'm going along for this ride and there's nothing I can do about it,
Yeah, imagine if you actually had control, right? You could take like 4 hits of whatever, fill in the blank and actually be in the driver's seat and decide like, oh, I like that thing that I'm doing. I'm going to emphasize that and avoid this. But you don't really get that kind of control. But I just imagine that maybe there's some, ascended master, some philosophical freaking indigo child that they're just like, they don't have to, actually put anything on their tongue. They're just like, bloop. And the anchor is just like, bam, now I'm in this like other astral realm and I can, tell what my dog's talking to me about across the room. And I've got like ESP connection to animals.
Well, I think like Ram Dass would say that, right? Like they would go and dose these different like gurus up in the, in the mountains, Tibet and stuff. And like they would take like LSD and DMT and all these things, and they just be like, yeah, that's just the outer lights. Yeah. That ain't shit, like, so I think that's pretty interesting too. There's something potentially to that. I definitely want to like seek that transcendental state without having to use substances. It's if possible, and again,
imagine getting pulled over on a DUI.
Yeah, I'm just high on my own supply, officer.
Have you read or listened to Psychic Self-Defense by Dion Fortune though?
I haven't, but I have not. I need to check that out.
I've seen many of her infomercials.
Many of Dion Fortune's
I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like
Cleo.
When you get to a deb ship back in the day, these people could do rituals or get to a certain state. They've trained themselves to launch themselves out of body on demand, which is something I want to do, which is one of the reasons why I got into it. It's not to like have money, cash, and hose, right? It's because I wanted to like be able to do this stuff, and they talk about it quite a bit.
And then you can just dip, if shit gets bad, you can just boop right out of your body.
Yeah, if it's like right.
Have you ever heard of a wake initiated lucid dream before?
Awake,
it's
I think so.
The acronym is WILD, literally. But that blew my mind that's a real thing too, that it's in like a tinier subset of people that can lucid dream. It's people that are it's not just instant astral projection, but it's like I'm here and awake, and I can just close my eyes and immediately be lucid dreaming. And I'm not
Wow, that's
daydreaming, and I'm not
cool.
making it up. I'm just right in there. And I think, I mean, from what I'm so far away from even doing just like the like lucid dreaming on accident. Like I'm still figuring out how to like realize that I'm in the dream. But imagine just being able to like immediately close your eyes and get there. And I think part of it is once you're in a lucid dream, you can anchor yourself there. So you figure out some magic ritual or some, you know, specific phrase or motion that you go through, and then you can repeat that in waking life, and it just anchors you right back to, you know, that lucid dream state.
Well, this is something weird I want to tell you guys. Back when I was doing magic and the astral travel stuff at the same time, like when I just started doing it, it's almost like how they say when you have beginner's luck in magic, when you try to manifest something, you have the best experience in the beginning, right? And so once I started doing it, I even like told, you know, would do experiments like Robert Monroe. So I would peel myself out of my body and then would go into where my son was playing video games. And one time I beat on the table. I was like that. And he jerked his head to the left and just kept playing. He was playing like Minecraft or something, you know? And then when I went back to my body, I asked him, I said, did you hear something? And he's like, something beat on the table. He even pointed at it. Right. So I thought, oh, okay. So we can actually become ghosts. They were right. This is cool. But then after that, every time I tried it, it kept like I would go immediately, and it would fade into a lucid dream. It would fade from that into a lucid dream. Like I couldn't stay there anymore for some reason. But I also stopped doing ritual daily. So what I'm saying is like, I think there's something to all this stuff that's more than in psychological is what I'm saying.
I think so too, dude. Have you ever looked into Castaneda at all, Thomas? Any of his work?
Carlos Castaneda, is that the dude that goes and trips out in the desert?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Carlos Castaneda.
So, dude, I've got this book right here. It's a Russian book, The Dream Searchers, Andrei Roitov. It's a 2-book series. I think it was initially supposed to be 3. The original, it's called The Dream Hackers, which sounds a lot cooler. I think you would love this book. But there's like a little portal here because they talk about entering dreams. They talk about some of Castaneda stuff. There's a chapter in here, chapter 5, called The Secrets of Magic. That is basically, it's distilling a lot of Castaneda's ideas and principles like right here in the book. But it's kind of like, think of the Matrix for a lucid dreamer kind of guy.
No, nice. Yeah,
so
that's kind of badass. That
kind of
sounds
what the
real
story
badass.
is. It's really, it's a translation, so you know, it's not as good as what it could have been, but it's a cool book. And I haven't read the second book yet, but we're about to. I have a book club on it. My friend Abby, do you know her? She's on Instagram, Abstract.
Yeah.
But
she interpreted one of my dreams really well, dude. Like it was crazy how well she did it.
She's a master lucid dreamer. She's been lucid dreaming her entire life. She taught her kids how to lucid dream actually because they were having nightmares. So, you know, she's pretty adept at it. And this was something that we got into and saw a lot of parallels in. And I read it before. I even read this book before, and I didn't see the same shit in this book as I saw the first time. But there was apparently a group of Russian sleep researchers, you know, called the Dream Hackers, and this is part of that story. It's sort of loosely based on them. It's set in like the late 90s when there are like internet cafes and stuff. But
that's so cool, man.
It's
Can you
actually
still pull up stuff on your screen too?
Yeah. What do you want me to pull up?
Pull up the Golden Dawn Vault of Adepti, or the Golden Dawn, or just Vault of Adepti. See if I can see what you're looking at, so I could kind of explain some of this magic to some people that are like, it's not what you think, you know.
I see it on Etsy or just like Amazon.
Yeah, just a picture of it. If you see a really colorful, weird looking psychedelic thing with astrological symbols in it, that's it.
Okay, hang on. Let me go to image. Just do that. There we go.
Yeah, so that like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th one. With there you go. That thing.
Yeah.
So that's
like
a
the big umbrella
one.
They put you under in like kindergarten.
Yeah, no, that's a pop-up one.
Yeah.
Somebody
put the ball in the center.
No, dude. Hold on, go back. That's a pop-up one. I'm not
okay. Right, hang on.
That's pretty cool. Someone made a pop-up one though. It's right below that. Do you see it? Where you're right there.
That
in
one?
the middle. In the
The
middle.
room. The room.
Oh,
to
the
the right
room.
of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
the room. Okay. Got it. Okay, one
Yeah,
second.
so Mathers and Crowley, they actually made this vault of adepti. Do you know what this thing is?
No.
That's where they usually sell beef jerky in the mall. I think.
No, dude, it looks like a clown room, right?
Mhm.
But what it is it's a astral travel launching pad.
Whoa.
Okay, and in magic, this is what it's about, dude. All of those symbols with flashing colors, if they focus on them long enough and they know how to scry through those symbols, it launches them what they believe through a doorway into that energy, right? So, for instance, like if they just decided, and you don't even get to go into one of these until you're like past all the magical stuff and you're into the inner orders. But once you get in here and say you want to go to, I don't know, like Mars or something, or you want to, I don't know, investigate Martian energy or whatever, they would sit there, do their rituals and mantras and stuff, focus on the flashing color of the Mars symbol, and launch themselves astrally there. Right. And that's what all that stuff is. So when you start training in magic, they give you tattoo cards and tarot cards to scry with. And then you get better at scrying and better at astral travel and better at projecting yourself. Right. And that's all that is. It's like a little astral travel spaceship with the doorways.
That's nuts.
So no one's doing Golden Dawn magic is what I'm trying to tell people, so they can like shoot lasers out of their arms or get cash or any of that stuff. Like, it's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, when you master the elements, it kind of helps, to be honest with you.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, dude, that's super interesting. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
So tattoo cards, like if people want to learn how to do that on their own, you could get a set of tattoo cards and just learn how to scry, and it's essentially the same thing. So they would focus on a symbol, like say the tetrad or the fire symbol of the.
There was just a picture of Chucky in there.
Yeah, did you see that? Yeah.
Where? Oh my God, that's not a good. That's how did that come up on a Golden Dawn thing?
I'm using DuckDuckGo.
Oh,
you know?
I gotcha.
It's DuckDuck fucking go, man. What do you want?
This the other symbol there, you probably know the name of it, Joe, but it looks like the same symbol that was on John Dee's scrying table.
Yeah, well, there's Enochian symbols in there too. Which one are you talking about?
Not in the wall, but like in like the other kind of like the star. Sound like an idiot talking. Yeah, right there, like the
yeah,
stars,
that's the Sigillum Deameth. Yeah. So at the top of the magical stuff in the Golden Dawn, you get obviously you learn Enochian. So the angels
so
that govern the elements.
John D. There it is.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
It's trippy, man.
It is. No,
so do you gotta pay money to get into that room at a certain level, or you just gotta know, you just gotta go to enough meetings, or
no, you have to
you gotta break 4 boards with one karate chop.
No, you have to do years of work, right? So like you have to go through Neophyte, Zelator, you have to go through the elemental grades, and then they have a grade what's called Portal, which is you're probably like 4 years into it at this point, 5 years. And then that's the last grade that you wash over the elements again to see if you've kind of balanced yourself out. And then when you become an adept, then they have another system of grades, which is the middle part of the tree of life.
I assume this isn't like you don't get to grade your own work, right? Like you're sending this in and you're getting judged by somebody, right?
Yeah, they have people that
does that not cost money?
You have to, it's Freemasonry. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah, it has to. The worldwide thing does have dues for sure.
They're not walking away from each of those tests with less money in their pocket.
No, and I don't think you have to pay the one I'm in. You don't have to pay the test. You just have to pay your monthly dues, and that's it.
Okay.
Right. But the cool thing is so the bottom part of the tree of life is essentially what people are calling magic, like they say on the tarot, the elemental grades. The middle part of the tree is the astral sphere, the astral part of the tree of life. That's the inner order or the second grade, right? And then the top of the tree of life, the first supernal triad or whatever, that's the alpha omega, the Rosicrucian order, the alpha omega, the super inner order or whatever. So there's 3 grades there. And it's funny too, because then you go into Freemasonry and they show, see, there you go. So the bottom would be magic. That would be like elemental magic, the stuff you see in the tarot. Pretty much what everybody's doing is at the bottom of the tree. The sphere of like Malkuth, Yesod, Hod, and Netzach, that bottom triangle. Right? And then once you pass through all that stuff, then you get to the middle order, that's the astral, kind of the astral sphere, they say. And that's what the Rosicrucian order of the RRAA is what they called it. And Crowley had a version of this too. And all of this stuff is just learning to get to your Christ-like energy, but it's a lot of astral traveling. And, he threw a lot of sex magic in there too, which the sexual forces are part of it, to be honest with you.
Well, Robert Monroe talks a lot about that in his book. He was surprised.
Yeah, exactly. See, now you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah. So, and then the top part, that first triad or that top part is like the super alpha omega, so to speak, the inner order, the inner Rosicrucian order. And so Freemasonry would take people through 3 grades. And then when you got into the Scottish Rite, you do 33, which is all the paths on the tree. They don't know that though, until you read, Albert Pike, and he's kind of reveals it. And he's like, yeah, this is all based on the tree. Right. So the Rosicrucians started getting into this stuff. And this is all of our Western secret societies are based on this, that and Hermetics, and the astrology. It's like the Hermeticum Trivium, astrology, magic, alchemy, astrology, magic, alchemy. That's it. And you can learn everything now. You don't have to go to Adam Weishaupt, even though he's dead, to learn any of this stuff,
What would you say the best way for somebody who is just an individual, they want to start working on this kind of stuff? What would you recommend? Any particular book?
Just do it on your own. Like, you don't have to join a society. The only reason why I would say if you joined a society, I like it because I like the fraternity of it. Mm-hmm. Right. I like being in the group. That's it. But it's so prevalent now. You can pick up like Liam Thomas Christopher's book, Kabbalah Magic, and the great work of self-transformation, and the whole bottom sphere of magic. It's there. You don't have to pay nothing, do anything, but you will go through some shit. I promise you, you will. If you do that stuff, it's like a disciplined thing. But then when people do it, or you're saying, yeah, I'm interested in this or whatever, and you go out and do it, if it's not chaos magicians or most modern thinkers think you're not modern because you're doing it, or they're like, oh, you're just trying to do your little black belt thing. And I'm like, my little black belt thing. I'm thinking, you have no idea what I've been through with this, right? And it's the same thing like when you go to Taekwondo and you just pay to take the test and they give you a yellow belt versus, like I said, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where you're there for like a year and they make you grapple a brown belt and see if you can hold your own before they give you one, I don't think any of our secret societies are that way anymore. So like, I think you can just do this stuff on your own if you want, if you're not interested in being in a society, but you got to build a lot of crazy stuff on your own too,
Yeah, there's going to be some resources that you need to, and it's always, man, I'm just like the type of person, I'm like you, where I like to be a part of the community. I'm an experiential learner. Yeah, I want to kind of like see how other people are doing it. There's definitely blind spots that I have. I'm relatively, I'm relatively I can learn, but at the same time, there's some stuff that I just don't like on my own. I don't have the patience or the attention span to learn.
Right. And you don't have to do this stuff to be able to do what they're teaching you to do. Like open up the Kundalini, right? Learn how to get out of your body, or astral travel to another sphere in space or whatever. Like we have the capabilities nowadays to do it on our own, if we want to. So I don't know. There's a lot of bullshit about the occult that needs to be, I think, fixed.
Yeah. I agree.
But that's what keeps it interesting too, man. That's what keeps it in movies and comics and cartoons.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And like, it makes it's the people that think that they're going to be able to fly and, like actually like run around on Mars and shoot aliens with lasers and stuff with,
or you get magic, one of those super soldier stories that come out like, my name is Corey Dumbass, and I'm gonna like Sorry, I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like,
Poor Corey.
I met this alien squad or whatever, and the government trained me to be a super soldier, and I can get out of body. So come to my event, pay me $1,200, and we'll get this going. It's like,
Well, I
Tell you
mean,
what the
if
Pleiadians
you've
are
gone
saying.
into some of those dark corners of like the NLP practitioners and the guys that have been in it, like, dude, there's legit people that are claiming, like, the CIA has hired me to train their agents on how to do, like deadly mind control, where I can just say certain words, and like, it's the version of the kung fu movies where if they punched you in like 8 specific parts, like your heart would just explode and you would die immediately. Like there's legitimately like NLP
with
practitioners
the Kill Bill heart punch.
dude, they claim they have like the NLP version of that. Like
Death
if I
punch.
just say these 9 words and hit this anchor point, like you're fucking dead, dude.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing too is like the chaos magicians, they pretty much took everything about the occult, the Golden Dawn, whatever, and they're like, okay, I understand how to scry. Okay, I understand how to do ritual. All right, I understand all this stuff. Let's find out what works.
Well,
And they
isn't that
kind of
what
condensed
Rosicrucians were? Like that was like the initial genesis of Rosicrucianism. I thought was that they had all of these different sort of
Yeah.
occult, sects, and they were just like, let's mash it all together and see what works out of this. But then,
Yeah, pretty much.
300
They
years
made
go by, and then we have a new version of it.
Yeah, they made a really cool like backstory that I think there's a lot of bullshit to it, but it's their symbolism and stuff, and there's a really cool backstory. And it's funny too because I hear Christians say, "Well, that doesn't actually have like a real history. That's all mythology and all this stuff. So there's no way it could work." I'm like, so you're saying that people that were spiritually inspired wrote books, we shouldn't read them? Is that what you're saying? And they're like, wait, no, I'm not. Wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. Right. So you can back up because your whole book was written that way, but it doesn't mean it's not real. You see, like, yeah, I get what you're saying though.
Yeah, man.
But I like chaos magic because that's what I'm saying. I like that too. They took this understanding and was like, well, I'm going to write a comic book and like freaking make my life, like all this crazy stuff happen in my life, what I put in the comic book, using this esoteric symbolism, which was what happened to Grant Morrison,
I think chaos magic is the hardest one for me to separate from NLP. I feel like they are so closely intertwined with just like reframing. Everything is just about reframing and removing yourself from the situation, observing it from different angles. Like it feels so little of magic and so much of psychology to me.
Well, I faced a fear of mine through chaos magicians, like Gordon White in his book Chaos Magic Protocols. He's like, okay, do you want money? We just got to get past all this other bullshit, and let's get how we're gonna do this. Well, we got to summon the devil, right? And I'm thinking, I don't want to summon the devil. But then he kind of like talks about how it's just like it's kind of like a psychological egregoric mechanism and all this other, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm not gonna go like get money or anything, but I gotta see if this is real. I don't want to do it, but to me it was a fear, right? So I'm like, I gotta see if it's real. And so you do the invocation and you pretty much say every name of Satan that there is, or the devil, or Lucifer, to do the invocation. But you have to find a crossroads, and you have to go out there by yourself, and it has to be at a certain time, and you have to keep going back. And after a while, it's just like ritual. Like if you're doing the banishing, it's you're like, why am I doing this?
I'd be scared to death, bro.
I didn't think anything was going to happen like this, but it was, for me, it was like, I need to find out if this is real. It wasn't to mess with evil or whatever, right? But it was real. I just don't know at what sense, right? Because like about the third time I went, there was no denying whatever it was I was calling was there, dude, because I was scared shitless. I couldn't move.
And was it just strictly a feeling, or
it was for me, it was a total feeling. Like now I did hear kind of weird stuff too, that I can't really explain. And I don't think it was wood noise. I'm not sure, but that fear that it's kind of like when you have that first nightmare when you're a toddler, that kind of fear.
I still have those every night,
dude. That came back. And I hadn't had one since, right? And it just kept increasing until I was like, all right, cool. I know you're there. That's all I wanted to know, and just kind of did my thing and got out of it.
I've got a question. I'm I'm morbidly curious about this, Joe. But like because I was raised Roman Catholic, and one of the big tenets of is that like you're not supposed to like have God, prove his magic. You're not supposed to be like, make that bush burn, or like, you know, perform this miracle in front of me and prove it to me. And it's almost like by asking for that, you're never going to get that. Is there a concept like that in magic too, where it's like, for example, you going out to the crossroads, if you did that entire, you know, the same exact process, but you also had a film crew that was like live streaming you to TikTok,
that wouldn't have happened, dude. Yeah, it wouldn't have happened.
And is it because they kill the vibe, or is it because your motivation is different? Or like, what if unbeknownst to you, you had a camera crew following you around and you weren't in on it?
Good question, man.
You know, like,
That's
like
actually
at what point does like someone else ruin the magic versus taking you out of it? And is, you know, is it just something that'll never be able to be observed on camera and recorded
well, see,
media?
there's certain, because see, there's certain things that happen to the individual in a ritual, right? So like when you go to, for instance, if you go on YouTube, there's a public ceremony. I think it was the invocation of Baal or something, not Baal, Belsbar, which was one of the demons of Mars, I think. And it had like celebrities watching it and stuff, and nothing happened. It was a really cool thing that they got from Crowley, and they wanted to redo it. Nothing happened. But if you was to do that like on your own, it would be different, I think. For instance, some of the magic that you do, especially with Crowley's magic, you don't get into any of this stuff in the Golden Dawn until you're like way deep in there, right? But Crowley just jumps right in it. So some of the stuff you do with a partner or a person, both of you will experience something. But that's because both you and the partner are really into the reason why and what you're trying to do and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you took a film crew and it was like a status thing, or if it was like this whole skeptic vibe, I just don't think, I think that nixes the whole thing for some reason. I really do. It's like when people have UFO experiences and stuff, right? They're always by themselves, or they seen the craziest thing, but they just couldn't get it on camera or whatever.
At a certain point, though, man, like we were legit, like, for example, if it were in London, right, like the most videotaped, you know, plant or city on the planet, essentially, like they don't have a whole lot of UFO abductions right in the middle of where all the cameras are. So I wonder if like, is this almost like the observer effect of like the double slit experiment, where if you've got cameras pointed everywhere, does that just mean that it doesn't happen anymore?
It could be an individual conscious thing. In other words, like, say I went to the crossroads in the woods and I did the invocation night after night, and I built that energy up, and I said the names, and I put that vibration out there, and you just happen to walk along, like, you know, that dude in Harold and Kumar, he's just pissing in the woods. Is this your special bush? You know, like that guy, right? Like, you're not gonna probably not see or feel a damn thing. The question to me would be is like, am I still going to, because you're there? So I kind of got like a different question than you do, because maybe it happens like individually. I don't know. You should look into like Steven Skinner, because he does all the goetic stuff and just doesn't care. He's like, yeah, I invoke demons to get what I want. This is what happened. You know, like, look into that. I don't do that stuff. I only did that one time because I had this massive curiosity about the devil. And I think we all do. We all do. Come on. Is he real? Is he not real?
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just shitting my pants thinking about it right now. Like the whole, like, you should talk to a Muslim mystic too. That guy's fascinating. He's all into the Goetia or Goesha or however you pronounce. And he's all about that stuff. And, you know, when I was out there in LA, it was like a week before our retreat, Joe, he was like, let's invoke some demon. And I was like, I'll be in the lobby. I'm just going to be hanging out, drinking $7 coffee, bro. Do whatever you got to do. I'm not really, that kind of freaks me out.
I mean, at a certain level, I mean, you basically walked up to the shrine of Starbucks with that, you know, ancient deity.
Yeah, you did magic too, man. You partook.
I mean, you put your money in, you paid your dues, you got the magic potion.
It's true.
You drank the Kool-Aid and everything, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, but I wasn't in there with some dude going, you know, so
this wasn't a Seattle Starbucks then, right?
I don't know, man. I would get the fuck out of there, Joe. You never know. His head might start spinning.
Dude, but here's the thing. It's all like realms of consciousness. Like, you're demon possessed. When I stayed the night in a hotel room with this dude, he was like, yeah, just, you could sleep in here. Just don't try to screw me. I'm like, well, I don't swing that way. I ain't going to do that shit. Right. But he fell asleep, started snoring. and this is the nicest dude you ever met in your life. But he rolled over and looked at me. He's like, fuck you, bitch. You know? And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what's going, but he was dead asleep. And there was some there's some dark stuff being worked out in his dream world, you know.
I got darkness in me too. You know, I'm not just some angel of light. You know, we all have our demons.
Exactly right.
But yeah, I mean, the invocation stuff, that's not something I really fuck with. You know, I'm more the modern, you know, like transurfing, like mentality sort of angle of stuff, and I don't really think too much about like entities and stuff like that. That said, Thomas Campbell's got a course that I'm probably going to do.
I like Thomas.
I like his stuff a lot. Yeah. And so I'd like, cause you know, as much as I'm like, oh, entities, what I still do want to learn to astrally project and learn that.
Well, you know, he developed Hemisync, right? Like,
yeah, it was him and he worked with Robert Monroe for years and years and years. And then Robert went on to do Monroe Institute. And I think Thomas Campbell did his own thing. He wrote that book, My Big Toe, which is about as dry as the Sahara, but like, it's a good, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
He doesn't believe.
I think it's cool. Yeah,
he doesn't believe there's any aliens like anywhere or nothing. It's all like this weird simulation thing. You know?
That's interesting. Well, but yeah, I mean, he's the most like pragmatic of those types, though. As far as like, we're gonna.
This sounds a little up my alley, actually.
I think you'd like him. Yeah,
you'd like him. But when I interviewed him on my show during the break, and this was a long time ago, he laid back and just closed his eyes, and I'm like, What are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just getting out of my body. I'm like, you can do it that fast? And he looked like he was gone. And then when break was over, he came back.
You feel a little tap on your shoulder. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Ask me about the time when Robert Monroe died.
It was a trip, man.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, I think his stuff is great. I think your guys' stuff is great. Any last thoughts before we kind of wrap this thing out? What do you guys, I really appreciate your time first and foremost. And I think there's a lot of overlap and a lot of the same patterns that we're seeing over and over and over again from the Illuminati all the way to here, you know, but it's amazing to be able to have so much knowledge at our disposal. Any thoughts, guys?
You go, Joe.
I think people need to, before we make like a judgment on any of this stuff, we need to really dig into it first to see what the premises of everything is, and then make our judgment. And secondly, like, I think you should keep this conversation going, bro. Like you guys should keep doing this because you're cool people, and you know, I don't see any agendas here except just trying to discover what's true and talk about cool shit. And this is a good subject. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, everybody be sure to check out Joe on Fringe FM. He's got the Lighting the Void show, lots of other great shows over there on the Fringe. As you can see, you can hear it all over the place. And lots of really cool stuff. The schedule's up there and you can just stream it literally right from your phone. I like to fall asleep to it.
Yeah, we have an app too. You just download the app. We have an Alexa skill. We're also an Apple CarPlay, Google Auto, all that stuff. Anywhere you can hear digital radio, basically, you can listen to fringe.fm.
And they got the Discord community, so if you want to get in there and drop some dank memes, then hit it up.
Some dank memes, yeah.
Then hit that.
I gotta say, but between Joe's voice and the time that it's on and the topics he talk about, it brings me right back to that like falling asleep in the 90s to like Coast to Coast or just some Art Bell or it's not necessarily what you get into, but like the whole like love line with Adam Carolla and Dr.
I want to do that. That was like, I got some new stuff I'm working on. Trust me, you guys.
I love that, dude. I mean, honestly, I just love that whole vibe of that kind of radio show.
I do too, man. You do a great job with it, Joe. Keep it up. I have familiar, things too. I've said that a couple of times, but we'll talk too because I got a couple ideas floating around. I love the traditional radio.
I got some ideas. Like I sent it because I've been doing a show 5 nights a week, and I'm like, what if I split this up into different categories each night and did certain types of shows? Like, I don't know, dude. I got some stuff I'm gonna work out.
Cool. Yeah, we'll holler as we do, and we'll chat about that. Thomas, tell everybody about Paranoid American. Let them know what, or I'm sorry, final thoughts first and foremost.
Oh yeah. So I mean, so going with Joe said, I would love to keep this going, and I think the next logical conclusion here is that we did the historical, we did sort of this transition. We kind of touched on Rosicrucians and French Freemasonry, and we just kind of danced around sort of like an abstract concepts. But what a lot of people care about and how you get introduced to the Illuminati is that, you know, Jay-Z's in it, and that, you know, Hollywood's in on it, and that, yeah, it's, if you do the symbol, you're in on it. So I would love to maybe just poke some holes in that. Like, is there something to that? Is there legitimately a modern like hip hop Illuminati or a modern Hollywood Illuminati? And if so, like, how would that look? You know, what would be the impact? That could be a fun one to get into.
All right,
So,
I'm in. I'm in. We'll do it. We'll make it happen. We'll definitely do that. And yeah, I think that'd be interesting too. I've seen a lot of different things, checkerboard floors. We can talk about some of the symbology that's so rampant in entertainment and stuff like that. And yeah, what the modern influences are of the Illuminati after hundreds of years. It's crazy.
yeah, and why out of all the secret societies of the last, you know, few hundred years, why is it the Bavarian Illuminati of all of them that still gets cited today?
That's a good question. I like that a lot. Yeah, man, that's awesome.
And it has to do with chaos magic, but we'll leave that for the next one.
Oh, I'm excited, dude. I can't wait to learn more about that. Awesome. Well, yeah, everybody, definitely go and check out paranoidamerican.com.
Yeah.
Tons of great comics, and like, yeah, you can learn so much about it. Tons of research. You've done so much research. It's cool. It's so
yeah, if you go to like
cool.
any like do a quick example for me. If you go to the
Sure.
time samplers at the very top,
Yeah.
and then just click on the first issue and go to the first page. Yeah, so hit next there to go to the first page. Yep.
Oh wow, you can preview it there. That's
yeah,
cool.
dude. And now if you scroll all the way down, I've actually got like notes on every single sort of like secret little symbol that came up in here. I kind of point out, you know, if you look back in that top layer, there's an all-seeing eye in one of the little billboards. There's a checkerboard floor there. The 3 different symbols there for the money and the consumer product and the credit card. These are direct references to, you know, we've got a Jordan Maxwell quote, current is currency. You know what I mean? I love, so and I do this for as many pages as I possibly can on here. So it breaks down like, here's what the conspiracy is. Here's, you know, here's more information to look at it.
Yeah, this is where
that was the best. That was the best radio show in the world, wasn't it? William Cooper, that guy.
Mystery Babylon.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was scared of all the teachings for sure, but he did talk about the power structures using them, and like, you know,
he understood it. I think he understood it from an outside and was like scared of like what he was seeing, but you know, he saw it like the actual, you know, pictures of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, go check it out, folks. That's amazing. Yeah, the amount of cool information that's embedded in this stuff. It's well written, super duper cool. And then go and check out The Chosen One. This is going to be a lot of fun. Really cool series.
You'll hear about this because this is going to be going on for like the next year with the next 6 issues. So yeah,
that's
there'll be
great.
Times to hype in one of y'all's comic books. I'm going to puke,
dude.
Like, I really want this so bad.
We gotta make it to issue 6 because that's the one that you and Bootsy are in, is in issue.
We'll
6.
figure it out.
All right,
we'll figure it out.
I'm gonna pump this. I'm sending an email out to everybody. But yeah, I'm gonna definitely want to support you guys, and yeah, just appreciate you both being on the show. Check everything out, everybody. Much love, many blessings, and we will continue this conversation and keep it going. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it is you find yourselves in, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Thanks, everybody.